You're listening to the Grow Real Estate Investing Podcast, an intelligent real estate investing how-to community where we break down the sometimes complicated real estate investing techniques into straightforward, simple to understand, and easy to follow components. No schemes, just the well-exercised foundational basics of real estate investing. Join us as together we dive into the world of real estate investing success and further release the real estate investor inside.
Welcome to the Grow Real Estate Investing Podcast. I'm Joe White, and today I'm going to be discussing property managers and if you should be using one. You know, it should be said that I own a Philadelphia property management company called Grow Property Management, so I obviously have a bias. But I will still try to give as objective of a view as I can. You know, as this is a real estate investing podcast intended to accurately advise real estate investors. You know, which brings me to some housekeeping. You know, I'm not an attorney, not an accountant, nor a financial advisor. I'm a broker, but I'm not your broker. And further, I'm a property manager, but I'm not your property manager. So it's important you rely upon those individuals for fuller assistance. And this is merely an informative guide. You know, so first, what do property management companies do? A property management company will manage your rental property for you so you don't have to. Property management is a state licensed activity. Not all companies realize this, and the penalties can be fairly stiff. It's not unheard of a contractor that will sometimes decide they can start managing properties and they get themselves into big trouble. But here we're talking about well-established property management companies. You know, if they appear established, they very likely are. A good source to find an accredited property management company is through a national organization called NARPM, N-A-R-P-M. You know, it's a lot like being a realtor, but for property management companies. Property management services, they vary wildly from company to company, but most property managers will completely manage every aspect of the rental property for you. They typically will keep the property legalized with federal, state, and local municipalities. They will market for tenants, screen the tenants, validate them through a series of criminal credit background checks. They will manage the security deposits, collect the rents, manage late rental payments, bounce checks, evictions, and handle the tenant move-ins, the tenant move-outs. Property management companies typically handle any tenant repair request and maintenance to the property. You know, hopefully they're monitoring this and responding to any inquiries 24 hours a day. So the cost of property management company also greatly varies, but expect to pay 8 to 13% depending on what part of the country you're in. So the national average, that property management fee is around 10%. But in a city like Philadelphia, you would expect to pay 8%. Now, obviously, a property management company alleviates all your landlord hassles involved with owning a rental property, and that is what tends to build my business. You know, I would say 70 to 75% of our clients that engage our property management service do so just to avoid aggravation. You know, we get property owners looking to avoid the paperwork, the late night calls, tenant difficulties, the legalizations, etc. You know, a property management company does make real estate investing a much more passive form of investing and a lot more fun. But from an investment perspective, does a property manager make sense? Do the numbers add up? You know, I've never read a real estate investing book or source of information that didn't advocate for the real estate investor to use a property management company. You know, some books merely assume you will, and they don't really get into the subject much. The reason why is that a property management company should make you far more than it costs you. In other words, you will hopefully get paid to eliminate your hassles. But there are also downsides, and I'll get to those. But first, here are the ways property managers increase your rental investment. One, they have relationships with vendors that an individual landlord can never have. They have incredible buying power. You know, with each contractor, exterminator, roofer, plumber, electrician, and attorney, they aren't just bringing your property, they're bringing all the properties they manage. You know, my property management company refers six figures in work to many different contractors. So they tend to work for far less than they would otherwise. They tend to do a far better job. They tend to do it much faster, and they tend to come back if they need to make something right. These vendors, like contractors and plumbers, are also well vetted by the time they repair your property. We've likely tested a roofer 40 times on other clients' properties or on our own properties long before we send them up on your roof. Do we ever run into bad contractors? Yes. Do we continue to use them in more than a property or two? Absolutely not. Also, most vendors prefer working through property management company referrals. Why? Because their workload goes way down. We simplify their day. They don't need to spend time that they could be working, getting paid, having to give estimates, since we typically already know the scope of work. We know how much it should cost. We schedule the work for them, and we get them easy access to the property. We are always the path of least resistance for a contractor. And contractors are not known for being good at running a business, and we take those tasks over for them. A property management company typically pays the contractor directly. In my case, of my company, that means that as soon as we feel that the work has been done to our satisfaction, we click a button and instantly pay the contractor by direct deposit. The contractor doesn't have to bill anyone. They don't have to wait for payment. They don't have to even need to take a check to the bank. And all those reasons deserve discounts, and all those reasons deserve loyalty. 2, increase rent and decrease vacancy. Few landlords compete with the level of marketing property management company does to find a tenant. Not only should a property manager get you far more rent than you can get otherwise, but they should also be able to greatly decrease your vacancy. Saving you from a month more vacancy will pay you more in rent from that entire in that entire year than property management fees would cost you. Remember, there is never a day that most larger property management companies don't have a vacancy. So they are likely constantly in a state of marketing. My company gets over 40 to well over 100 inquiries a day from prospective tenants. We maintain a waiting list to place tenants. Marketing vacancies is a property manager's job, and they're likely very good at it. And they should also be extremely streamlined to do it as well. Property management companies typically have staff to instantly answer the phones when prospective tenants call. And many property management companies like mine offer instant showings and allow the tenants to schedule their own showings. 3, obviously a property management company can save you from very expensive legal problems. I don't have any numbers on how many landlords get into financial trouble with the federal, state, and local cities, but to me it feels like a lot. Why? Because landlords become our clients when they're in distress. They call us when they can't fill a vacancy or when they're facing legal doom, having unknowingly found themselves in extremely hot water. Rental properties have to be navigated through liabilities, or it can be really expensive. Property manager does this just by the nature of the property management industry and the required education to be in it. I've seen landlords that have self-managed without incident for several years until they run to an issue. And I have seen tens of thousands of lost dollars. Is my perception screwed? Yes. Again, property owners tend to come to me when they're in trouble. The ones that avoid trouble might never come to us. I have no idea if 1 out of every 10 landlords gets in trouble, 1 out of every 100, or 1 out of every 1,000. I do know that I own rental properties also, as I'm an active investor, and I have zero interest in hurting my investments the ways that I've seen some poor landlords have. So earlier I mentioned there are downsides to using a property management company, and here are a few. Number 1, I mentioned that I get a lot of clients when property owners are in distress. Unfortunately, some of these owners are in distress from a bad relationship with their property management company. Real estate investing will never be passive. Let me say that again. It will never be passive. And back to those real estate investing books that I spoke of earlier, how they all kind of direct you to use a property management company. They all kind of direct you that real estate investing is passive. Not true. All the books lie. You cannot simply hand over control to a property management company and forget about your investment. You must supervise. Maybe that is tuning in every 6 months. Maybe it's tuning in every month, or maybe it's tuning in monthly. But you'll need to supervise the property management company. You are the property owner. You must keep the big picture facing in the right direction. 2, is the property being cared for? I drive through the streets of Philadelphia and I can pick out all the rentals. They all have that look about them. If it looks that way to me, it looks that way to prospective tenants. It will look that way to an appraiser. It will look that way to an insurance inspector. And it's just going to anger the neighbors and make you into a target. An unloved property will cost you rent, increase your vacancy. It can increase your insurance and will cost you and your neighbor's equity. And costing your neighbor's equity will come back again, and it will lose you even more equity. Anyone that follows my podcast knows I love equity. Cash flow protects us, and equity is what makes us rich. All right, number 3, hidden fees. Property management companies are chock full of hidden fees. Most companies will charge you a markup percentage for repairs. There can be a fee just because the tenant is staying another year. There can be a fee if the property is vacant. Also, many property management companies will require you to use them as their agent if you decide to sell the property. Again, you cannot be passive in your real estate investing, so pay really good attention before you jump in with a property management company. So it's kind of clear that my advice is to use a property management company. I'm sure that's not a surprise since I own a property management company, but I do believe that paying qualified professionals like attorneys, accountants, and property managers ultimately will make you money. I do believe an investor should use a property management company. I think it's a logical investment decision. Property managers make you scalable. You can own one property to 10,000 units as long as you have the management teams in place. They give you money value of time. Just how much is your time worth? Could you be using that time to make money doing something else, like concentrating on your career or finding your next property? Property managers are incredible sources of property leads, by the way. So there you have it. I'm Joe White. This is the Grow Real Estate Investing Podcast, and happy investing, everyone.